All right, ladies and gentlemen, there's been a lot of doom and gloom surrounding the edtech space with data breaches, vendor layoffs, and just the sentiment and infighting around the one-to-one device space and screen time effects and limits, especially with the younger grade levels. So today, we're going to keep this one a little bit lighter and focus more on a specific classroom technology that doesn't often get the praise it deserves. The boring tech that just delivers day in and day out. And that's the strange thing that happens in ed tech. The tools that get the most attention are rarely the tools that teachers rely on the most. Nobody wants to walk into an ed tech conference excited for a keynote about document cameras. There's no transformative document camera ecosystem, no AI-powered subscription model, no predictive analytics dashboard for the document camera, no billion-dollar startup trying to disrupt classroom through visual projection strategy. Yet if you removed every document camera from schools tomorrow, teachers would notice before second period. Because while education keeps chasing the next revolutionary platform, the document camera quietly continues to do something incredibly important, helping students learn. And today, we're going to take a look at why document cameras may be one of the most undervalued instructional technologies in K-12 education, and why the research behind effective teaching supports what these tools do extremely well. Not only that, they have a great return on investment and value of investment as well. Welcome to Chips and Chalk, where we talk real K-12 technology. Not the sales pitch, not the conference version, what actually works in schools. I'm your host, Adam Swinchock, and I spent a career leading technology K-12 environments. And if there's one thing that I've learned, it's that the gap between what is promised and what actually happens in a school district is massive. This podcast is about closing that gap. Now, somewhere in the distance, I can hear the faint cheering from my favorite primary and math teachers I've worked with over the years, especially those in the advanced placement sections. Maybe even it's about darn time underneath their breath. The trusty arrow in their quiver of tools is finally getting the recognition it deserves. Not because it's not valuable, but somewhere along the way, document cameras developed a reputation as old school, almost like the overhead projector. More than likely from some vendor selling a competing, more pricey replacement tech and a bunch of units in a warehouse they needed to move. People associate them with lecture-heavy classrooms, teacher-centered instruction, or passive learning. Basically, the old school stand and deliver model. But that completely misunderstands how effective teachers can actually use them. Document cameras are not presentation tools first. They're modeling tools. And instructional modeling is one of the most research-supported practices in education. Researcher John Hattie, through the visible learning meta-analysis, consistently highlights teacher clarity, worked examples, and explicit instruction as high-impact strategies tied to student achievement. Students learn better when they can see expert thinking happen step by step. Not just the finished answer, the process itself. That matters because learning is not simply exposure to information. It's understanding how that thinking happens. Document cameras uniquely support that process visibility. Teachers can solve math problems live, annotate text naturally, model revisions, demonstrate handwriting, show manipulatives, analyze student work together, and conduct science demonstrations in real time. Students are not just seeing content. They're seeing cognition unfold. One reason document cameras are so effective connects directly to cognitive load theory. Developed by educational psychologist John Sweller, the theory argues that working memory is limited. If students spend too much mental energy navigating systems or interfaces, they have less cognitive capacity available for actual learning. As teachers and working professionals, we've experienced this ourselves firsthand. Sometimes the setup takes more effort than it should, and mentally we are done before we've actually even started. Modern classrooms sometimes create enormous amounts of institutional friction. Open the laptop, log in, find the LMS, work the assignment, wait for the sync, click the right tab, fix the password issue. Now multiply that by 25 students. A document camera removes almost all of that friction instantly. Everyone focuses on the same thing at the same time with almost zero barriers. That simplicity is important. Instructional momentum is incredibly valuable. The less energy students spend accessing learning, the more energy they can spend processing the learning. Now, before everyone jumps down my throat about differentiated instruction and individualized learning plans, what I'm talking about here is using the document camera for whole group instruction. I'm fully aware that not every tool, like a document camera, is going to fit every need. And we have to remember that just because we have a hammer available doesn't mean that we need to treat everything like a nail. Yes, there are scenarios where you can break this up into small group settings. So for instance, if you do learning centers in your classroom, you have the ability to still use this tool as you bring maybe a group of 4 or 5 students together to work with you individually on a specific topic so you can gauge their understanding. But understanding as well that you're not going to have 26 different document cameras wanting 26 different scenarios at the same time. So step back and take a deep breath. Document cameras also show imperfect thinking, something that happens to us all the time as adults in your careers as you work through complex problems or initiatives. Most digital presentations today are polished. They're pre-built. They're animated. They're absolutely perfect in most cases. But students often learn more from watching things, hesitation, revision, crossouts, problem solving, and even mistakes. Research around worked examples consistently shows students benefit from observing step-by-step problem solving, especially in novice learners. Document cameras naturally support worked examples because they reveal process instead of only outcomes. Now, because this tech has been labeled old school, one of the biggest misunderstandings about document cameras is assuming they automatically create a teacher-centered instruction space. And we all know what happens when we assume, right? In reality, they can be incredibly effective in student-centered classrooms when used intentionally. Just like any other tech or system out there, intentionally is the key word. Because the real power of the document camera is not that the teacher can show work, it's that everyone can show work, and that flips the dynamic completely. Instead of students passively consuming polished answers on a slide deck, classrooms can use document cameras to make student thinking visible in real time. Students can explain their reasoning, model problem-solving approaches, annotate texts, share lab observations, demonstrate handwriting or drawing techniques, compare strategies, and defend conclusions that they've made. The teacher becomes more of a facilitator guiding discussion instead of the sole source of information. And this is where document cameras become extremely powerful for discourse-based instruction. A student solves a math problem under the camera. Now the classroom can discuss, why did the strategy work? What was the thinking process? Where did confusion happen? Is there another approach to this? What mistake was made here? How could this answer be improved? That creates visible learning. Students begin learning from each other, not just from the teacher. The document camera also supports collaborative instruction beautifully. Groups can present solutions, analyze artifacts, share revisions, display prototypes, conduct demonstrations, and peer review writing. And because the process is live and imperfect, students see authentic thinking instead of overly polished outcomes. Students begin to understand learning is iterative, problem solving is messy, and revision is normal. Something that's often lost in the social media generation where everything is just perceived as being perfect because it's online and some influencers showed themselves somewhere. Another highly effective strategy is using anonymous student work. A teacher can place a sample under the document camera and facilitate discussion around strengths, misconceptions, growth opportunities, organization, evidence, reasoning. That allows classrooms to normalize productive struggle without singling students out negatively. The document camera can also become a station tool in elementary intervention environments. Students rotate through reading fluency activities, manipulative demonstrations, vocabulary work, collaborative annotation, visual explanation exercises. The tool itself is neutral. The instructional strategy determines whether the classroom experience becomes passive or deeply interactive. Document cameras are also powerful in an area that's often overlooked as accessibility tools, especially when paired with modern classroom displays or interactive panels. For students with attention challenges, processing delays, visual impairments, or language barriers, live visual modeling can dramatically improve comprehension. Unlike many digital tools, document cameras do not require students to successfully navigate tech before learning begins. That matters in elementary classrooms, intervention settings, special education environments, and fast-moving instruction. We can also take a look at reliability. When the internet fails, the document camera still works. When the SSO breaks, the document camera still works. When the LMS crashes or is breached during first period, the document camera still works. Short of the power going out in the building, the document camera still works. That consistency protects instructional time. And if you really want to see the value of document cameras, walk into a kindergarten classroom, because engaging a kindergartner is completely different than engaging a high school student. At that age, attention spans are short. I mean shorter than a TikTok on fast forward. Transitions matter. Movement matters, and visual focus matters. Kindergarten teachers are balancing instruction, behavior, curiosity, attention, and classroom management, sometimes all within 30 seconds. A document camera creates a shared visual focus instantly. Think about a teacher reading a picture book, especially in kindergarten. Without a document camera, students are leaning forward or crowding around the teacher on the carpet, losing visibility, getting distracted, talking to their neighbor because they can't see the page clearly. Now place that same book under a document camera connected to a large classroom display. Every student can see clearly the illustrations, the text, the punctuation, the letter formation, visual details of the story. The teacher can pause and ask, what do you notice? Who can find the letter B? What emotion do you see on this character's face? What do you think happens next? Now, the technology is supporting engagement instead of competing for it. The same thing happens in kindergarten math instruction. A teacher using physical manipulatives under a document camera can model counting, grouping, sorting, patterns, addition concepts, and every student gets the same visual access at the same time without crowding around a small table. Young learners often need to see the process repeatedly, and kindergarten teachers cannot afford instructional friction. If a lesson suddenly requires multiple student logins, troubleshooting devices, navigating apps, managing passwords, waiting for updates, the room can unravel quickly. A kindergarten classroom runs on momentum, routine, and engagement. Document cameras support all three of those extremely well. Another misconception is that document cameras are simply just projector accessories or interactive display accessories. Modern document cameras are far more flexible instructional tools than many people realize, especially after districts experience synchronous and hybrid learning. Document cameras became live demonstration cameras, remote instruction tools, recording devices, annotation tools, and hybrid learning bridges. In our environment, we use the Aver M11 8M heavily because they balanced affordability, reliability, portability, and ease of use extremely well. These devices can operate in a multiple of ways depending on instructional need. Teachers can connect them directly through HDMI to a classroom projector or display. It was really simple and reliable. No computer required, minimal points of failure. It was a fast startup and easy transitions during instruction. But they could also connect through a USB to a teacher device. So once connected through the USB, the document camera essentially became a live camera source for either video conferencing, lesson recording. They could screen capture or use annotation software to deliver their instruction. During synchronous learning, our teachers could use document cameras inside platforms like Microsoft Teams or Zoom to demonstrate math problems, show manipulatives, annotate text, and conduct science demonstrations live for remote students, getting as close to being there as they possibly could. They didn't just need slides during remote learning. They needed to see thinking still happening. Document cameras restored some of that natural instructional modeling that often disappears in online environments. Our teachers were able to record lessons and put them into Canvas Studio. They could capture still images, zoom and focus the controls of the system. They could annotate digitally. They took picture-in-picture instructions and side-by-side comparisons. That flexibility significantly increased the value proposition of the device. And when it comes to tech, in today's day and age, that's where a lot of the discussions are starting and stopping. We talk about ROI with it, the value proposition. because every technology purchase in K-12 eventually turns into the same question. Was it worth it? Is it worth it? Document cameras may be one of the strongest ROI investments in classroom tech, especially compared to modern subscription-driven systems. Think about the life cycle of the document camera. A district purchases the document camera once and may use it instructionally for 7, 8, sometimes even 10 years. No annual licensing increases, no recurring subscription models, no cloud storage tiers, no forced migrations. Support costs are also extremely low. Most support tickets involve loose cables, incorrect input, projection source issues, and accidental unplugging. Brief trainings or a classroom technology manual can actually turn these tickets into non-tickets, as most issues are easily resolved by the classroom teacher. Sometimes it was just unplugged by the janitor cleaning the area. No need to wait for a tech person to arrive to fix this issue. Now compare that to supporting an LMS, an SSO, browser compatibility, rostering systems, MFA, cloud outages, everything else you deal with. The operational burden of this is extremely small, but the conversation shouldn't just stop at just the ROI. Schools should also think about the value of the investment. What is the value of faster instructional transitions, clearer modeling, fewer classroom interruptions, stronger engagement, reduced teacher frustration, lower cognitive load? Those things matter enormously, even if they don't appear on the procurement spreadsheets. A teacher can instantly share student work, demonstrate a lab, model annotation, walk through handwriting, show manipulatives, teach a math process. There's almost no delay between "I want students to see this" and "students can now see this." That immediacy has tremendous instructional value. Document cameras are also an important reminder about instructional technology, that it's about choosing the right tool for the job. What's the goal we are trying to achieve with the lesson? Not the flashiest tool, not the newest tool, not the tool with the best conference booth, the right tool. And sometimes education overcomplicates simple instructional moments, chasing innovation instead of clarity. Take a math classroom example. A teacher wants a student to understand how to solve a multi-step algebra equation. There are moments where schools immediately jump forward into interactive math platforms, gamification, collaborative digital whiteboards, AI-generated hints, browser-based annotation tools, screen sharing workflows. But now suddenly the classroom experience is completely dependent upon device readiness, Wi-Fi, student logins, browser compatibility, software syncing, students navigating interfaces correctly. Meanwhile, the instructional goal was simply watch this process step by step. A document camera can solve that instantly. Place the paper under the camera, work through the problem naturally, pause, annotate, circle mistakes, show revisions, and students ask what the next step should be. Now the focus stays on the mathematical thinking instead of platform navigation. That does not mean digital math tools have no value. Please don't go there. There are incredible platforms for adaptive practice, visualization, individualized support, and feedback. But not every instructional moment requires the most technologically advanced solution available. Sometimes the highest value instructional move is the one with the fewest barriers, the fastest transition, the clearest visibility, and the lowest cognitive load. Educational technology works best when it supports instruction instead of competing with it. And this overcomplication allowed the document camera to reveal something important about educational technology that's out there. Schools sometimes confuse complexity with innovation. More dashboards, more integrations, more analytics. But classrooms are human environments. Humans learn best when the instruction is clear, predictable, visible, and low friction. The document camera succeeds because it amplifies teaching instead of competing with it. It supports the teacher rather than trying to replace the teacher. Teachers trust it because it works consistently. The best classroom technology often disappears into the environment. As an IT department, we're constantly striving to do that. We want to get technology out of the way of learning. We want teachers to stop thinking about the tool and focus entirely on the instruction. The most effective tool in the classroom is not always the one that gets the most attention. Sometimes it's the tool that teachers trust instinctively and the one that's been around for a very long time. The tool that lowers barriers instead of adding them. The tool that supports cognition instead of distracting from it. The tool that continues working even when everything else fails. And sometimes that tool is simply a camera pointed at a piece of paper. Thanks for listening. If you're in K-12, whether you're leading it, supporting it, or living it in the classroom, this is the work. If this episode hit home, go ahead and follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. And if there's something you want us to dig into or a real-world situation you're working through, we're going to open up that soon. And as we go forward with Chips and Chalk, we're going to keep cutting through the noise. No fluff, no theory without reality, just what actually works in schools. Thanks for listening.